But then you also have a guy who's got a prosthetic leg, and his trauma is probably different. I don't know. But you know, I mean, the shot of the picture on the in the car of the kid
dashboard. That's my actual great nephew, by the way. That's my nephew's son, and I was like, Lila asked, she's like, "Is there anybody that you wanna?" And I was like, sure. It definitely served, and I was like, well, he's gonna have to wait a long time to see himself in this movie because he's only like 6. Paul.
Bryan.
How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I am really happy to meet you. We haven't met.
Not as excited as I am to meet you. I've been a huge fan of yours for quite a long time.
Thanks. Likewise.
And when I was told that I was sitting with you, I was like, oh, we're going to be doing it in front of everyone. Like, I was like, not the first meeting I thought of, but I'm very honored to sit with you.
Yeah. Likewise. So Bryan Tyree Henry.
That's me.
Yeah. So did you know you were going to use your middle name from the get-go?
I didn't. Apparently there is some imposter out there named Bryan Henry that already had the name, and I had to put my middle name.
So you had to? That's
to.
Nice. I mean, it sounds nice. I like it.
Yeah, but it's also just like, it doesn't really give you anywhere to go. So if you wanted to, like, especially since I've been known as Bryan Henry for years, and people also thought Bryan Henry was my first name. So people would literally just call me Bryan Henry and then go, Bryan Henry what? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
So if we weren't in front of a camera, would I just call you Bryan?
You call me BTH.
BTH.
People call me, this is something I'm trying to take on now. BTH is what I've been called, B-Hen.
So I did my first film when I was 16, and I went by Paul Franklin Dano.
Okay.
Was my middle name. And then the second film I did, they said, if you want your name on the poster, it's too long. And I said, okay.
And you let them take Franklin away.
That's right.
It sounds very presidential.
Well, I don't miss it, but it's just funny that I was wondering how much of a choice it was for you, because I was 17 and I was like, all right.
The 3-name club is something very special.
That's cool, man. Yeah.
Special.
Yeah, it's cool.
You said you started at 16. Is acting something that you knew you always wanted to do?
I think yes and no. I mean, honestly, it's pretty embarrassing, which I think is that I grew up in Manhattan first.
Okay.
I think my mom probably wanted me to be a lawyer or something that a mom wants you to be. And I remember at the school I went to, they had public speaking. And it was like a thing. I was like a kid, and I was like, okay, you go and do this little public speaking thing. And then we had to get out. We were in a 1-bedroom, me and my sister, my mom and dad. We had to move out of the city, right? Okay. So we got a house in the suburbs. And then the schools were different. And I think she put me in the theater so that I would continue to, like, something. Yeah. But it turned out that I liked the theater, and I was, I guess, good at it, because as a kid I started doing not just the school plays but the community plays.
Oh, wow.
And then that led to doing a regional play in Stamford, Connecticut.
I know Stamford.
Okay. And then that led to doing like an off-Broadway and Broadway play when I was like a kid, and the child acting thing, I have like mixed feelings about it, because I think it's hard for like people to grow up if they give up school and they give up their friends and sports. And luckily, like, I still had a decent enough thing back at home, and so by the time it was a theater casting director who was casting a film called LIE, and it was just a movie I auditioned for and got it. But I don't think at that age, the Megaplex, like, to me, the movies were Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Hence it being called Megaplex. It was like the
So, and I just wasn't that, right? So, like, I think when I started to think I want to be an actor, I thought it meant being on stage. I thought it meant being on Broadway, which it is, and I still want it to be that. But I didn't know, I didn't have enough options at that young age to I didn't think I want to be in Terminator 2, even though I loved watching Terminator 2.
We all wanted to be him at some point.
Well, yeah,
I was like, why couldn't I have been this kid being saved by Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah. Oh man, he was that kid. I worked for him.
With Furlong, right? Yeah.
So good. So I actually rewatched it recently.
It still holds up.
It's good. It's good. It's one of the great.
It still holds up.
So I Googled you today.
You Googled me
for our talk.
Oh boy.
So you went to business school for a moment?
I was at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. The only all-black male institution, HBCU, in the country. Knowing that that's where I wanted to go since I was a kid. like there was something that happened when I told all these elder black people that I was going to Morehouse, that it was like you watch them light up, and I was like, well, I have to go to Morehouse. Like I can't.
Yeah.
And I went there with no idea of what I wanted to be or become. I just knew that that was where I was supposed to be, and maybe I'd figure it out there. But when I was in high school, I was doing speech and debate. So like public speaking, competing, and things like that. Winning a few trophies here and there. And yeah, man, I was like, I was killing it back then. And they had a speech and debate team at Morehouse that I immediately flocked to. But at the same time, there's no theater arts program or anything on Morehouse's campus. All the theater is on Spelman's campus, which is our sister school across the way. So I had a few friends, a few buddies who knew that I liked theater, knew that I liked speech and debate, and I was in the middle of a business class, and no diss to Morehouse business, but I hated it. Like it was packed, there weren't enough desks, and I remember I was reading, I think I was reading Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye, like during the lecture, because I was just like, I don't really care. And two buddies of mine knocked on this window while I was like in the class, because they saw that I was just like bored out of my mind, and they were like, well, there's an audition going on at Spelman for, I think, Antigone at the time. And so I just looked at the professor, I was like, you're just gonna have to mark me out, I'm not coming back. And so I walked out of class and went over to this audition, and when I stepped in there, man, I just felt like I was amongst my tribe. Like,
oh my God.
Everyone was lined up to audition for this, you know.
And what age around is that?
I had to be 18.
So that was the first, that was the moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah, man.
That's
I mean,
incredible.
it was undeniable that these were the people I wanted to build relationships with, to create with. I felt very much like myself. I felt very seen, you know what I mean? And it was fun. The whole part of me doing plays is because, you know, I thought it was in the title that that's what you're gonna do. It's called a play, so we're just gonna go and play with each other. And then to be at this predominantly black institution doing plays like Antigone or Tartuffe, or, you know, it was mind-boggling. It gave us a place to just like let our imaginations run. So I started there and just never looked back. The stage has always been my heart. And same with you, right? Because
I started through acting. I probably started through even like singing, got to acting too, and like, cause I know you've done some musicals.
Do you dance
Oh,
you
were in the original Book of Mormon, right?
I was in
That's
the original
crazy.
Book of Mormon.
That's pretty cool.
Crazy times.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. That's
I
awesome.
hope there are no photos that surface from that time.
We're gonna look them up, and we'll make sure they flash to them, right? You can do that, right? We can flash to them. So you came out of drama school.
Yes.
And you went to New York.
I went straight to New York. So I had the luxury, honestly, of working and collaborating with some incredible people while I was at Yale.
Yeah.
Terrell McCraney is one of them, who wrote Moonlight.
Yeah.
And so we had done all his plays while we were at Yale. You know, we did little showcases and things like that. And then those plays got momentum, and we could go to New York. So, you know, the public theater.
Let me just pause, because my wife went to Yale undergraduate, but she said that whenever you were in a play, she made sure to see it. Even then, she was like,
Zoe,
this guy's got
it's so
the
crazy
thing.
how small this world is, because Zoe and Lila, who directed Causeway, and I were just insane people at Yale. Like, we watched everything. We talked about theater. We had coffee. We would walk the streets. And Zoe is, and even then, it's so crazy, because you can kind of, the energy of knowing when somebody just is going to do something amazing, you can feel it immediately. And I immediately felt it with Zoe. And I mean, we used to just have some amazing talks. And I was also, I'm not gonna lie, I was the guy that was always throwing functions. I was always the guy, if you heard music coming from my apartment, if you saw smoke coming out the window, then you could probably just come in. But there was something about the two of them. I mean, there was something that was just wiser beyond their years for them to be undergrads. It's just like, but their love for acting and theater was like immediately, so same to her. Zoe is.
She felt that way about you, but
yeah.
And what was it like to work with a theater director doing her first film? Because it's a very different language with actors, right? Blah, blah, blah.
It is.
Yeah.
And people, it really, truly is. Theater is hard. But it's also very fulfilling and rewarding, because I feel like theater is a place where it's true collaboration, right? Like, you really are in a place where you can develop together. And Lila, you know, I mean, it's so crazy, because we had always been kind of like chomping at the bit to do plays together. You know, it seemed like we were always two ships in the wind. of trying to find a way to collaborate together. Either I was doing something or she was doing something, and never the two met, you know? And so when this script came to me, it was at the request of her. She wanted me to be a part of it, and the minute I heard her name, it was a yes. I didn't even read it. And I think that says a lot about who she is and what she brings. And I always say that she is truly an actor's director because she really understands what we're going through, what our process is. She really wants to get in there. It's a conversation, it's a dialogue, not so much point move here, this shot here, this light here. She will really like come up and really want to get into what the conversation is about where the story is going. Yeah. So when you meet directors like that, you know, you have to really lean in a huge way. Got you a nice truck.
Yeah, not anymore.
How long have you been doing this?
Just now, I don't know. It's not mine.
When was the last time you changed the oil in it?
And did you, her, and Jennifer Lawrence spend time together? Did you rehearse?
We
Because
did.
I also thought she was really wonderful in the film. Jennifer,
yeah, she's amazing.
And really different for her. I liked how sort of, I don't know, contained and simple. Yeah. And she's such a, quote, movie star that to see her in this mode felt really exciting, actually.
I think.
So what was your guys'?
I think there was, that was a huge benefit of doing the film, was that all three of us connected to the piece in such a way that we had conversations quite often about where we saw it going. Jennifer, this being her first producing endeavor, really was very hands-on. I don't think she had done a film in quite some time before doing this. And so for her to come back to a film like this, which is, you know, she started kind of an independent, you know, film and then, you know, became a movie star, and then to see her come back to this, it was very remarkable to see.
I don't know my number.
I mean, it's just business.
No, I really don't know my number.
You know, Lila, her and I collaborated quite a bit of how we wanted to showcase this story, how we wanted to watch this journey of her character, Lindsay, and who she interacted with, and, you know, this story of grief and loss, which I have to segue because, like, speaking of directors, man, Steven Spielberg, like, was working with Steven Spielberg something you ever thought was gonna happen? Was it a dream of yours? Like,
No, I don't know that I ever thought it would happen. I guess it's a dream. I mean, you know, I got a text saying Steven Spielberg wants to meet with you, and it's like, okay, you know, like, great. And it's gonna be on Zoom because it was the pandemic, and I thought, oh man, the first time I'm gonna meet Steven is on Zoom. Like what? I was really nervous, and I haven't felt that way in a while.
Okay.
You know, just like, wow, nervous for a meeting. You know.
via Zoom.
And I remember Zoe being like, who are you meeting with? Why are you acting this way? And I was like, Steven Spielberg wants to Zoom. And she was like, oh. And the second he started talking, he was so emotionally like open from the get-go. And I think, I mean, most artists are in a way, but when it's somebody like him, who is probably one of the great film artists of all time and is a legend, and it just kind of disarmed me so immediately that Steven Spielberg was like a totally like open, relatable book to me.
Right.
And he was so emotionally intuitive, and I didn't know what the project was. As soon as he started telling me it was about his family, his story in a way, about his parents, my heart like really leapt, which I don't have that feeling often. And there was something where I was like, oh, like this is actually like what he needs right now. This is a step for him too. If you can take one at 74 and being one of the great directors of all time, like this is actually like, it felt important. I was like, though this is gonna be an important film for him.
It plays that way.
I want you to make a camping trip movie. You can learn how the editing machine works while you do this. It'll make your mom feel better.
Yeah.
I actually left our meeting feeling really good, and then it took a while. I was like, oh no, and I was like, oh man, I had a big feeling, like I really hope he calls again, and then he sent me the script, and we got to Zoom again. The script is beautiful. Tony Kushner co-wrote it with Steven. I mean, Tony's one of the, Michelle Williams and I would say, like, we get to like work with this language.
Right.
Like,
He's
it's
one of my
such a
dream writers
gift.
to work with, and like huge respect for Tony.
You never got to play like Belize or anything?
No,
You know,
it's really interesting. I got to do during the pandemic.
Oh, I know you did.
Yeah, we did
Yeah,
Angels
yeah.
in America, and I requested to play Pryor, and he sent me a beautiful letter after, and it was like a dream that I got to do Angels in America.
Well, yeah. So we would. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, Michelle and I would be like, I can't believe how like we get to like the words are just so. There's so much and months of you know prepping this material and this script, and it still just always has something else to give to you. You know, if you're willing to kind of turn over every stone there that's on the page, and with those two guys, Stephen and Tony. So I read the script. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. Stephen and I talked again. We talked about his father. Again, he was just incredibly open and vulnerable with me, and I was really taken aback. And then finally we had a third Zoom, and the third Zoom was him with a cigar in his mouth. And he was like, I think you'll make my dad proud. And I was like, okay.
He hasn't picked up his camera once since we got here. He'll be going to college in September. Maybe his feelings about it have changed. He's growing up. I'm enthusiastic about that.
Which I have to say, one of the scenes that really stood out to me in The Fabelmans with you, Paul, is the very beginning where you're telling him about going into the movies and how you break the language of what he's about to experience for the first time down in such a way where it's so mathematical but also so relatable. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like, you and how you guys came together? I mean, it's a remarkable scene. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's so nice. Well, funny, because I remember asking Tony Kushner a question about just like one word it was something to do with, and then he rewrote the whole thing like the day before, and I was like, oh, Paul, don't ask Tony.
Don't ever ask
Don't
a
ask him
question again.
questions, because I mean, it's amazing how you can see Stephen's parents in him. His mother was a very free spirit and artist. His father was a truly brilliant computer engineer. It was just at a time where being a company man was like the most important thing, meaning people weren't becoming entrepreneurs yet. Had he been around a decade or two later, he's a name we might know, but he literally helped build the first computer that the first programming language was built on.
Pretty much. He's a
So,
genius, yeah.
you know, seeing that sort of technical engineering sort of brilliance, and then his mother's sort of free-flowing music brilliance, I think you can see them both in Stephen, you know, the way that he's used technology in his films. I do not have that kind of brain. So it was actually really like, it's so nice. I don't know what characters have done this for you, but when something kind of gives back to you, where you're like, oh, I can take this with me. So like Bert's rationality is like something that was really healthy for me as a parent, to be like, you know what, you can trust the like the way the world works. Like an engineer sees that things are made a certain way. The chair is, you know, a plane goes, but, you know, so there was this, and it was kind of, there was something very solid in his energy, grounded. I always saw, you know, the mom and the kid as the storm, and Bert had to be the grounding. So like just the body and trying to like be my most grounded self through Bert, that was like something like that was good for me. I was like, oh, okay, you know, I could use a little bit of that instead of always, you know, trying to grab onto whatever's going on up here.
That's
you know,
kind of
like
what James did for me in Causeway, honestly, because, you know, I always say that, I keep saying I always say, I don't always say this, I swear to God. But what I thought was, you know, at that time, dealing with my own personal grief, I needed to figure out how to kind of lay it down. And what Causeway provided was this opportunity to live in the shoes of this man that really was, you meet him kind of in however long he's been dealing with his loss. You know, he's trying to live his life as an ordinary man. He's, you know, but there's also this sense of feeling like he deserves to be where he's at. You know, I always relate it to the story of him like paying penance, you know, that character that's putting lashes on his back of like, well, this is what I deserve. And so I just think about when I was approaching him, what I needed for myself and what I needed to see reflected back to me in order for me to actually feel like I could move forward. Do you feel like?
Yeah, and that's actually really kind of interesting, like, because I think marrying the personal with character is kind of like like, so how do you do that, right? Because you know, you're obviously coming at that character from an extremely personal place. It sounds like, right?
Right.
Which I think is really important, and I think it's part of why you know what we have to give to it.
Do what we do.
But then you also have a guy who's got a prosthetic leg, and his trauma is probably different. I don't know. But you know, I mean, the shot of the picture on the in the car of the kid.
Dashboard. That's my actual great nephew, by the way. That's my nephew's son, and I was like, Lila asked, she's like, "Is there anybody that you wanna?" And I was like, sure. Like, it definitely served. And I was like, well, he's gonna have to wait a long time to see himself in this movie because he's only like 6. But yeah, those kind of personal elements that we tend to do.
But you're also not you, is what I'm
Right,
saying,
exactly.
right? So like, just like, how did you take that, what you were talking about with your own personal grief, and then like marry it with character, so to speak?
With acute precision to make sure that I didn't get as lost in it as I might have. Because I find that with a lot of the characters that I've played over my career, that I have to feel like I can relate in some way. But I also want to make sure that I'm showing these men to other people that need to see them, to people that didn't even realize that they related to somebody like them. I think it was a few years ago when I realized that when I get a script and I see a character, the first thing I think about is like, well, where did they come from? What's their favorite book to read? What is the music they listen to? And what I had to go back to was like, oh, but before they speak though, Bryan, because you're playing them, they are a black man, like period. Like this is a black man that you're coming from. So before you open your mouth, there's already these things that are put on him and these things that are denied him, and you have to figure out how in a way to show that they deserve, in a way, show that they deserve to be cared about. And so, especially with James, I really wanted to make sure that he himself came to an understanding that he deserved to be cared for while the movie progressed.
Whoa! I can't believe you actually got in.
You have these obstacles, where you're playing an amputee, and you're this man who suffered this huge car accident is choosing to work at an auto body shop. He didn't leave the town that he suffered this great loss. All these things. As the same with Sammy's father. It's like knowing that this kind of. I think another scene that really stood out to me the most was the divorce scene, like the telling the kids that you were separated.
Yeah.
And to watch your character kind of have such a stoic approach to it, of just like, it was really truly like watching him figure out an equation of how to share this news. And you did it with such, I don't know, like I just remember sitting up a little bit more, watching this whole family kind of unravel, but you, the father, the patriarch, trying to hold on to some kind of semblance of how the family would shift, but it's going to be okay. Can you talk a little bit about that scene, if that's okay? If you don't mind?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
it's
That's
truly
really nice.
brilliant,
Thanks.
man.
Yeah. That was quite a day. Again, I mean, and I think Steven's talked about this, so I think it's okay to say. I mean, he was having a big experience, making the movies. So it was really, it's not like any other film I've made. The soundstage really had its own, energy. And I do remember that day. Those are scenes that, golly, I guess you're blessed that they're there when you read the script, and then you don't, in a way, you don't want to go there, but you have to, and then you feel some relief afterwards, maybe, if it, so Bert kind of at least tries to fall on the sword. Something I like about him, it's a very old school word, but like there's like just like a decency. There's a sort of integrity to what I think American men used to try to sort of stand for, especially coming out of World War II in the 50s, the greatest generation.
Right, that's what they say.
And his background, coming from an immigrant family who had to work really hard to establish their roots in Cincinnati and a Jewish community there, he was the first one to be able to pursue the American dream. I think he's a guy who could walk into a room and kind of could say, I can fix this, let me fix this, and then looking at his, what's wrong with my marriage, and what happens when you can't fix, when you're somebody who could fix anything and you can't fix something. And I always felt like he was somebody who felt deeply, but either didn't know how to express it or was holding it back for the sake of his family. And I think he sort of fell on the sword for them in a lot of ways. And
That's a great expression, fall on the sword. That's truly.
yeah, just, I mean, if you think about the real context of it, I don't want to go too like spoiler, but like if your wife left you for your best friend,
Right.
who your kids call their uncle, that's devastating.
It's shattering.
It's-
Actually, that's the.
And somehow for them, maybe for himself too, he handled it with dignity and care as best as he could. And I was always very moved by that. And now having kids of my own, yeah, the thought of having that conversation with your kids, you know, and our kids were so great. It was so, I actually loved, I mean,
Every single one
our
of
family,
those, yeah,
it was a
every
very
single
sweet family.
person was phenomenal.
It was really sweet. And then to have a scene partner, again, like Michelle and our kid Gabriel, too, who was, I remember, so in that scene, actually, there's a moment in the mirror where
Yes,
Sammy,
yes.
So that was something on the day where Steven said, I have this idea, I'm going to try it. I don't know if it's going to work, not in the script. And I watched it and I thought, well, I don't know if that, you know, it's just like an extra moment that he added. And when I saw in the film, I went, holy, you know,
Yeah.
I was like, that
It's a shot to the gut.
is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, so like to be around to see Steven, like, I see something in my head, let me try it.
And he tries it.
And then to have it work so beautifully in the cut, that was, yeah.
I have to ask you also, because I think of you as such a brilliant character actor. You know, I mean, I know I don't know if that's a faux pas to say now, you know, about saying that someone's a character actor, but you truly are. Can we talk about the Riddler a little bit and what your process was with that? Because you did something that lingered with me after I watched it. I'm about to work with Peter Craig as well, because Peter Craig, and his writing is just, it's unbelievable.
Okay, cool.
But I would like to know exactly like what your approach to that kind of character was, like, because I feel like you left a lot on the floor with that, man, and I wanted to know, because from Sammy's father, you know, from the Riddler to Sammy, there's just a.
Well, luckily, Steven's film was an anecdote to that. I was so happy that Steven saw in me this character of Bert, especially after playing the Edward Ashton Riddler part, you know. And I feel like there's a real divergence for me in my life cycle of like, okay, like there's a lot of energy in that one that I think is old for me, and like I think I've been working through for a long time.
Sure.
And I think the Fabelmans was like, it was about marriage and being a parent, and it was a much more present tense me, and I really appreciated the opportunity to start bringing more of that part of myself to work after playing the Riddler. But you know, so this guy Matt Reeves, who directed the Batman, is really great. I really like Matt, and right from the get-go, he was like, the two sides of trauma. Like, that was the first conversation. It's like, Bruce Wayne is rich. He gets to respond to his trauma with more help. No, I mean, it's gonna sound reductive. I'm kind of just giving the quick, you know, like,
no, go for it.
But like this kid, Edward Ashton, like had nothing and never, you know, and I always thought the only positive feedback that this person has ever received in their life was when a puzzle or a riddle said you win or that you got it. Like, that's the only, everything else. And a lot of feelings about what's nature and what's nurture. I don't think somebody can become that way without nature, but I also think that the nurture that Gotham City was dealing with is a really big and important part of that film. And so the gray area of like, you know, this guy's he's not wrong about these powerful people being corrupt and what that does for society. He's definitely handling it in like a really wrong way. So like, it was a really interesting point of view. I didn't love, I don't know if you've had this with certain characters, like this happened to me with the Riddler. It happened to me in this film called Prisoners, where like I really have to sometimes start to separate the space, because like if I have a book about trauma or the FBI's like serial killers, like whatever stuff, like that can't go by my bed anymore. You know, like as an adult now. I think when I was young,
ourselves,
you would
right?
be like, you know,
like,
but it's like, okay, like how do I, you know, I remember for the I have this sort of big scene towards the end of the Batman in Arkham, and I remember, okay, like this is the few days where let me get a hotel and be away from my family, because like none of this needs to be mixed.
And dealing with the trauma, I want to go into that because I think both of our films, in essence, are talking about that topic.
Yeah.
What do you find was the most helpful to help you, get through that? Like really, like because when you're signing up every day to tell this story that you know is going to unfold with trauma, and trauma sticks to you. So like how what did you as Paul do?
Well, I want to. I don't know if you feel. I think like the end of the day is really important. Like, did you get there? Like, did you leave it out on the floor? Which I think is like one of the things we've both done theater that's different about film is like if you're only going to be in that location for that one day,
Right.
you gotta like leave it out on the floor, right? Like you get to do this once. Whether Matt Reeves and Peter Craig and all these people wrote it, and this Gotham, it's the archetypal energy is huge. Or with Stephen and Tony and the Fabelmans, like you're there once, and you get to like. So a lot of energy goes towards like one day, right? One scene, and you accrue a lot of stuff along whatever your preparation time is.
Sure.
And then you have to kind of release it, right? And then so just getting to the end of the day is step one.
That is truly.
Yeah.
Because I find that I'm getting to a place now, I'm just trying to figure out how to release it. I found that over the past few years, I haven't been in TV and film as long as you, and so I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate, how to leave these men where I found them. Because a lot of them trail.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because, for me, I want to make sure, like I said, that, I'm giving this element of authenticity to what they're doing, and part of me, for some reason, feels like, oh, well, then that has to let me give a pound of flesh for that. And it's like, well, no, you really can't do that. You just can't. But inevitably, it somehow rears its head that I am doing that, and I wonder if, like, I'm still trying to figure out the process of leaving them behind without feeling like I abandoned them. Is there, I just, because does that also help you in the roles that you pick? Like when you think, okay, how much of this trauma buffet am I going to eat from today? Like when I play this guy, how much?
Yeah, sure. And it matters now more than it used to probably. And we're fortunate. We're here talking, and things are going okay this year. So like you have maybe a little more choice and all that. So I do think it matters. I think it matters like where you're at in your life too. Just like I am sort of. I don't want to be like too hippy dippy, but I think it's like
do it.
Things come like sometimes at the right time. Sometimes, right? I think especially with Bert and the Fabelmans for me, like I needed that. Yeah, I don't know, and I think that's like a continuous learning curve for us. I mean, one of the things that keeps me going is the learning part.
Right.
Like, I think if I was starting to get bored, I would get real sad and not be interested. So I'm always like, what can I add to my preparation, right? Like an athlete in the off season, like what do you add for this year?
I always say that I'm
an
a
NBA
student.
player?
I like being a student, first
Me
and
too.
foremost.
And then I think the opposite, the end part is true, which is like, okay, how do I take this coat off, right, and leave it here for a moment and go home? Or just at the end of the shoot? I do think there's like a lot of energy that accrues that I do think goes towards the work in a good way, right? Like, what we carry in our bodies and so I don't know that yet. I've tried different things. I've also heard other actors. Have you heard this? I've heard, I won't name somebody, like, there's like some very, very good actor who apparently like he gets out of his trailer, like spins around 3 times, says something to himself, and then like, you hear this stuff and you're like, okay, should I try spinning around 3 times? And like, how do I?
Was it Judd Hirsch? Judd Hirsch said that?
No, that sounds like something he might say. I do like ritual and building ritual for character, like how to enter, right, and then how to leave. I do think sometimes our days are long and they're back to back. I really like athlete analogies, so I wish that we maybe put a little more care into the after work part, which is
I agree. Yeah,
I don't know what the
agree with
equivalent
that.
of the ice bath is, but like, okay, how do I really take care of
the rehabilitation of it all. I agree.
Yeah. And again, it depends on what we're doing, but if we're lucky to have a Causeway or a Fabelmans, you care, and the point of being there is to give it what you got.
Most important question, Paul. When are we working together?
Buddy, I was watching you at Causeway, and I was like, how you look so relaxed, and I mean that in the highest compliment, because you have some super dramatic scenes, some really heavy stuff, and I see it come. The reason I think the reason why you're such a beautiful actor is we can really see into you, and I think. So watching, I was like, man, Bryan seems I still get nervous. I'm like, how Bryan really seems like he's in himself, and really, I can see the piece of you at work, or the piece of your imagination, whatever it is, and yeah, I was
means
like,
a
how
lot.
is he? So it would be nice to work together.
Yeah. So we should just call Steven and then
We'll call Steve. We'll call Steve.
it would be a
We'll
dream.
start there. Yeah. All right, bro.
It's a pleasure,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, likewise.